So thanks for joining our program today.
Thanks for having me, Christina. I'm excited to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm a Duke alum. I graduated from Trinity in 2006. I majored in English and minored in economics and got a film video certificate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and since then I've worked various jobs, most notably as a trader of futures and equities trader in Chicago and New York. And I'm working on a feature documentary about microlending to women right now.
Okay, cool. So how did you get into trading?
My dad's a trader, so I kind of grew up having an awareness of it. But I think I found a posting on Craigslist originally.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I know they didn't offer me the job at first, so I got a bunch of my friends who looked professional to call them and try to get them to give me a second shot.
Nice.
So it ended up working out okay.
So how did you decide to transition to filmmaking? Like, why? What happened?
Sure. I was trading the European shift when I was in Chicago, trading at night. And I happened upon this New York Times article written by Nick Kristof called The Women's Crusade.
Okay.
It was published, I think, August 17th of 2009.
Yeah.
And I was really inspired by the article. It talked a lot about microfinance and women and the benefits that it could provide women in various poor places around the world, in developing nations. And I thought it was super cool, so I put together the team from there. And I was able to I got really lucky because I found a great team who was just excited about the idea. The director of photography has 50 studio Hollywood films on his resume. The editing team has 27 Emmys between the two of them, including 4 for Best Documentary. Yeah, it's great. And the composers produce for the Grammy-nominated Shiny Toy Guns, and they're all either volunteers or they're getting paid very little.
Wow,
so it's pretty cool.
And how did you find these people, like through your trading network or like?
No, actually, Craigslist again was the way I found.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The
recommendation.
The DP, Craigslist. I found him originally that way, and then once he was a part of the project, we were able to reach out to his network and kind of find other people that were experienced as well.
Nice. So, I imagine the trading world and the filmmaking world are very different. So, how did you make the transition? Like, what are some differences that you have to, like, what are some obstacles you have to to overcome?
Sure. Actually, they might not be as different as you might assume at first, because there's a lot of liking risk. I think is helpful in both career paths. Definitely, if I were a more risk averse person, I don't think I would have been a successful trader, and I definitely couldn't have undertaken this job because there's lots of. I mean, there's no net. It was just something that I was passionate about, and I took the plunge. And luckily, it's been working out really well.
Nice.
But yeah, in terms of transition, it's just a matter of kind of learning how this field works. I mean, I got the film certificate at Duke, but I never made a feature film before, certainly. So it was really important that I had experienced people around me.
Nice. So let's talk about your documentary. So your documentary is microlending for women, for enterprising women in underdeveloped country, right? And can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. So it's a global project. We've already filmed in South America, which was the short demo that I was showing in and around the Duke community this week. And we're going to be filming in Bangladesh and India at the end of February because there's just so much going on in the news in those two countries in particular. And it's just I think microfinance, sort of the dark underbelly, has revealed itself in some ways in that area of the world. So we want to go research that and show on film why it's happening and how it can be prevented going forward. Just things like the mass loan defaults in India and the suicides surrounding that around Hyderabad and places, I guess mostly in Hyderabad. Andhra Pradesh is the name of the region. And just governmental interference in Bangladesh with Grameen Bank and what Dr. Yunus is trying to do. And then we'll film in Kenya in May, and I'm actually taking 4 Duke undergrads with me whenever we go on that trip. So that's going to be pretty cool. Yeah.
And where did you already go somewhere, filmed it? Like,
yeah, we filmed in Paraguay in South America.
Yeah,
right.
So how was that? Like,
it was great. It was really great. I couldn't have asked for a better situation, really, going in not knowing what to expect. Go ahead.
So what are some like stories like you've encountered while filming?
Well, when I was on the scouting trip in Bangladesh, I thought I was dressing appropriately, but that was definitely not the case. Like, I mean, I was completely covered, like head to toe, except like my elbow to my like hand was exposed. So that was a problem, and that had to be taken care of. And it's a moderate Muslim country, so I didn't go in anticipating that would be the case as it was. And the story of this family I thought was pretty amazing. It's definitely demonstrates the uplifting side of microfinance, I think. And the story was just that this family was destitute, but they weren't living hand to mouth or anything like that. They were okay. And then their youngest son, the youngest of 9, a tumor was found on his abdomen. So they spent everything they had on the medical expenses, and they lost everything. And after that, luckily he survived, and he had a very slim chance of survival. After that, the mother of the family, Pavlina, took out her first microloan. And from there she started a business selling cakes at the side of a roadside stand in front of her house. And she sells them for 40 cents for a bundle of 3. And with that she was able to kind of get her family afloat and keep them afloat. And it ended up working out well. And so that was 6 years ago, and the family's thriving, and they're sending their children to university, and it's just a really inspiring story, I think.
So who are giving out those microloans?
That one in particular came from an organization called the Fundación Paraguaya. I'm pronouncing it poorly. But they're based clearly in Paraguay. And they do a lot of work with junior achievement, as we talked about the other night. And they're funded by the Clinton Foundation and the Skoll Foundation. The Clinton Global Initiative. Sorry, I misspoke.
So why can't formal like financial institutions just like lend those loans? Why does it have to be some kind of like charity organization?
It doesn't have to be, actually. It could be. That already is happening.
Really?
There are banks that are working to do it. I mean, Grameen is actually a bank, although it's a not-for-profit bank. This organization that was for-profit in India, SKS, which is based in Hyderabad, is effectively banking as well. And it's the organization that's been in the news recently and kind of is getting some bad press because of situations there. Probably deservedly, it sounds like. But I mean, banks are looking to do this, and it's becoming a more popular kind of option for large level investment, which makes sense, I think.
Nice. So how did those banks decide which family to lend a loan, or do they just like give anyone who demanded, or?
No, it's an interesting question. I think they would go out, these loan officers would go out into the countryside and just start talking to women in areas out in the rural areas. And, if they found a woman that seemed kind of promising, it's purely like a subjective judgment, they would say, do you know any other women who might be interested in starting a business and getting these loans? And, so these women would then seek out friends and neighbors and relatives who might be interested. And they would take out these loans as a group, often of 15 to 16 or so, which I think is brilliant because these women don't have collateral to put up. They're not able to get a loan from a typical, like a banking service. So these loans kind of function like these women want to repay the loans because of that peer pressure. They don't want to let down their sisters and their neighbors, so they want to make sure to do their part. And it's been very successful. The repayment rate at this particular institution was like 98%, which was pretty significant.
Yeah. So, but you've mentioned that there was the default, massive defaults in India. So what happened there exactly?
We're still researching that, but something that I've come across that I think would be a contributing factor is namely that this particular institution, SKS, is for-profit, and it isn't offering any other kind of social services in addition to just offering the loans. So particularly when you're lending to women, I think those other like services that offer education, helping a woman draw up a business plan, health services, which are not often, but sometimes provided by organizations that also offer microloans. That wasn't the case at this place in India, so when these women couldn't afford to repay the loans, they were just like, well, this organization isn't partnering with me, it isn't trying to help me, so they were less likely to repay it. Yeah, and another problem actually is that in places like Bangladesh and India where they're so densely populated and there are so many microfinance institutions, a woman can just go to 17 different institutions and get 17 different loans, and no one knows that she has that many loans, and then it's just there's no way she can repay.
Is there a solution to the problem, or are they still exploring it?
They're definitely still exploring it. I mean, I think something that has to happen very soon is just that there has to be some kind of regulation within the industry. Maybe not globally, because it's so the loans they're very different, and if you're looking at a country in Africa versus somewhere in South America or in Southeast Asia. So I think in each country there needs to be some kind of just overseeing entity that makes sure things like this aren't happening. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question. So do you have any advice for Duke students in terms of like choosing a career, stuff like that?
I do, actually. Yeah, I was thinking about this a lot just being around campus the last week and thinking about how I looked at kind of my career path as an undergrad. And I think Duke in particular tends to be very kind of finance oriented. People come in thinking, okay, I'm going to be an iBanker, I'm going to go work at Goldman afterward, after undergrad, and then maybe then I'll get an MBA from another prestigious school. I think it's good to consider other options, and I know for me at least, kind of carving out my own path and kind of taking the time to figure out what I liked and finding an intersection of several things that I liked, as I feel like I have with this project, has made me so happy. Like, yeah, like I quit my trading job 2 months ago, and it was a very scary thing, but I didn't know if it could work, if I could make it work so that I could still live and work on this full time, but it's been amazing. It's really working out well.
What motivates you to make that decision? To you're in the trading world, you have like good monetary compensation, and it's like a very prestigious job, and then you're suddenly a filmmaker who are like running around seeking for funds and doing like there are a lot of uncertainties, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I've been working on the project already for about a year, or a little more than a year, and I realized that it was getting increasingly difficult to do both. I had some savings from trading, and also just I was kind of tired of the trading environment. It was just so... I was often one of only a few girls, and there were just kind of like sexist comments would be made, like it was no big deal constantly, so it was just frustrating. But yeah, so it was kind of that negative motivator coupled with I'm 26, like I need to do what I really want to be doing now.
Okay.
If I don't do it now, I won't do it.
Cool. So what's your next destination for the project?
We're going to Bangladesh and India in February, and then Kenya, but we'll hopefully be back soon with a completed feature sometime within the next year.
Nice.
That'd be really cool.
So Rachel, very nice to
Thank
chat
you.
with you on our program today, and
Thank you for having
good
me.
luck with your project.